Hi everyone, it's Darlene. Welcome back for another card video. I've got some masking for you today. I've got 3 stamp sets I'm using. Simon Says Stamp Best Fishes, this otter from the Paper Smooches Birthday Buddies, and also the Scripty Saying set by Lawn Fawn. Now I'm going to start off by stamping my Scripty Saying, and there are a lot of brands out there that have this style of stamp. Just something that extends across the card will work. And I'm going to stamp it right in the center of my 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inch Neenah Solar White cardstock. I also have some masking tape, and I needed something really secure. A Post-it's not going to have enough stick to it, so I'm actually using masking tape this time. And because I use the VersaFine Black Onyx ink, it's a pigment ink, and it stays wet so we can heat emboss it. So I did some clear heat embossing just to improve the masking quality of that divider. So I've arranged my fish here the way I want them, and I'm going to put them both on the block at the same time. I'm going to ink this up with some Memento Tuxedo black ink because I'm going to be using some Copic markers on them, and this is the best ink for that. Alright, now I'm going to color these fish in pretty quickly. I'm not going to do too much shading and detail on it because it's such small areas. So I'll just turn the music up for just a little bit and you can watch me color these. Now after coloring this green fish, I decided to add a little bit more detail with some dots, and I've done this before on another card. I used B000, and what this is doing is it's pushing the green away and replacing it with some blue. I wish I had used a little bit of a darker color because then the spots would show up a little more, but I had the spots pretty close together on the left, and then I'm spacing them out a little bit more as I get to the right side. And it just gives a little bit of extra interest for that fish. I'm also going to stamp these fish again on that masking tape I used for my saying, and I'm going to cut these out. I'm also going to cut out the Scripty Saying as well. And you kind of have to be careful about, I really had to think about what areas I want to mask of the letters, and one of them I kind of messed up a little bit, but at the end of the video you'll see how I fixed that. Okay, now I'm going to take the masks that I created and put them on top. And then I'm going to cover the top half of my Scripty Saying, and I'm going to add another strip just to make sure I don't hit that white area. Now I'm going to use 3 different distress inks and 1 applicator. So I have 1 applicator for all my blues, and I'm going to start off with the lightest blue. It's Broken China, and it's been a really long time since I did this, so I'm a little bit out of practice. But with all the pointy parts of that mask, you want to make sure that you really don't go upward with your applicator because it might remove the mask. Alright, so this is Salty Ocean, and it's very, very juicy, and you can see I kind of tested it on some scrap cardstock first, and I'm getting a lot of blocky, splotchy lines you can see here. And I was starting to get a little bit annoyed because part of it is that I'm just out of practice, and my Broken China isn't very juicy, so it's really easy to ink blend when your ink pad is not that juicy, but you can see how I'm getting a lot of block. So I've changed my technique now, and I'm twisting. So I'm twisting to the right, to the left, and I'm kind of hitting the cardstock and making actually more splotches. And so my new splotches are covering my old splotches. You can see how I'm sort of like going up and down and just kind of twisting it around, and by doing this the ink was blending a little bit more. So if you do have a juicy ink pad and you're having trouble with ink blocking, then go ahead and try this twisty technique because I find that it worked for me. And also just making the background a little bit darker, so just applying more and more inks will help it not look so blotchy. Okay, so I'm going to drop some water on here, and I used my grid sheet for my MISTI, but you could use like the backing of a stamp set, anything that's plastic that'll resist the water. I've got my paintbrush. I'm going to dip it in some water, and then I'm going to flick it. I'm going to have a tissue handy. I'm going to flick it onto the blue area. And the more water you have on your brush, the thicker your spots are going to be. The less water, you'll have smaller spots. So I'm going to do this a couple of times here, and I just use my tissue to wipe up the water. And I want to be careful now. I've got those masks on the fish. I don't want the water to go through those masks. So I'm going to do this pretty quickly. So wipe this up one last time, and then I'll go ahead and remove my masks. And this is my favorite part because the fish just looks so much brighter against this dark blue background. So I think everything turned out pretty good, except for there was one area of the S that I wish I would have left white. So you could see that little curl in the S, and I'm going to fix that a little later. But I like the way the water spots came out too. Alright, I've got my otter here. I'm going to stamp him on another piece of scratch cardstock, and I'm coloring him with Copics as well. I've got the top part of him. I'm actually coloring the entire body with these three colors, but I'm just using the light and the medium on the top part. So you can see I used E40 and E43. I'm just going around here. And then on the bottom half, I'm using E43 and E44. So that way he looks very consistent and everything blends, but he's got a lighter top and a darker bottom. So where the top overlaps, I'm also putting a little bit of shading under there so it looks more dimensional. Now finally, for his nose, I thought I'd try something new that I haven't done before. I ended up coloring the whole thing with 110. This is a beautiful solid black marker that's great for shading full areas. Then I took my C4 and I colored a kind of a big circle in the middle, and then I did a smaller circle on top of the C4 with C1, and then I just did some dots with the 0. So it's a black nose, but it kind of looks like it's got a little bit of a reflection and shine. And then I just use my C1 and my 0 blender to provide a little shading on his teeth. Now I didn't want the water around him or the hat, so I decided to cut this guy out. So I'm going to fussy cut him. And now it's time to put everything together, and I'm just going to use my ATG gun, and I'm going to put him right on the wave line where it kind of looks like he's coming out of the water. And then I'm going to take my panel and put, now I've trimmed it, I forgot to tell you, I took 1/4 of an inch off on both sides, and that way I've got a 1/8 of an inch mat across the whole card. This is a card base at 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, and I'm going to use my Scotch foam tape to adhere it to the front. And so now I decided to go ahead and fill in that part of the S that I colored blue, and I wanted it to be white. So I just took a gel pen and I quickly just kind of tapped it in there to make it white, and it actually came out really good. You can see it close up here. It colored it in, and you can't even notice that it used to be blue. So other than that, I was happy with how all the other letters were masked. And so that is the end of the card for today. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you next time. Thanks for watching.